Everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for August 5th through 11th, 2024. So as we go into this week, we are fresh off of a Leo new moon. So we have a new moon every season, meaning, whether the sun is in Leo or Cancer or in Gemini, we always have that new moon that really sets us in the energies of that sign. Even though we are used to looking at time, at least in our regular calendar, from a sun perspective, we have the seasons, we have the months, we even have the solar months from astrology. It's really the moon that sets and creates the container for our reality. So, for those that do not know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium, presently in the rolling hills of Central Maryland. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. And you hear me say every week, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Do not forget that. So for those that are watching live, do say hello. I see some familiar faces. So just a little quick side note, I'm not going to be able to do this live the next 2 weeks. I will be traveling. I'm going to do my darndest to do a pre-recorded show next week. Not next week, it's the week after. It's the week of the 19th of August. We do have the Aquarius full moon. We do have Mars square Saturn, so there's definitely lots on the docket. But August is August, and I realize astrology is a little bit biased towards Northern Hemisphere. I'm so sorry for our friends in the Southern Hemisphere, but there is something to the fact that Leo season is the time when we go on vacation, go on holiday. Things are at a very different pace than they are, let's say, when the sun goes into Virgo at the end of August and we go back into that earth energy. One of the reasons I love Leo is that Leo is a fire sign. Fire signs talk about the creation, the birth of something. And I was actually really thinking about this today because it's something that it comes across, or maybe it's a better way to put it. It does something that comes up in my client work. It's like, if you want something, you first have to be able to vision it. And that's actually very much an Aquarius thing. Aquarius is the sign that's opposite Leo, but it also has to be a passion. There has to be desire. There has to be that because then it's not going to become real. Not that that's, the magic formula for everything, but, Leo and fire and the energies of creation and new beginnings remind us that new life, new beginnings start with a spark. And that spark, it can't be a mental spark, meaning it can't be an idea in the terms of like a mental construct. You have to feel it. There has to be fire behind it. And so fire signs fire signs and fire element are the first in a sequence of elements that go fire, earth, air, and water. And that's how we create things. So when the sun goes into Leo, we start a whole new stage of the zodiac. We go into a fire sign, new beginnings. And here we are just the day after the Leo new moon. And we are now in a lunar month where fire, new beginnings, creativity, initiative, drive, but because Leo is the sign of the sun, identity. Who are you? And there is only, I assure you, there's only one you in all of the universe. And it is to express that. It is to take something that is very intimate inside of you. Maybe that's the Scorpio side of the Leo cross, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, and to share it and to reveal it, because that's the real power, I think, of Leo, when it really pulls on the energy of Scorpio to be able to express its individuality, its creativity, its uniqueness. So we are in a season that is really tapping into these questions about self and identity and passion and desire and the drive for something new. And I think I probably said this last week, a new moon opens a 4-week period That's the duration of the lunar month. And that 4 weeks, it's a stage. It's a setting. It's a setting that our life takes place in through the lens and the archetype of the sign that we have the new moon in. And that's where you're saying, well, but Katie, I'm not a Leo. But I assure you, Leo is somewhere in your astrology. It could be a career sign, it could be a relationship sign, it could be health and wellness. It really depends on what your sun sign is and what your rising sign is. You also have a sun, S-U-N, and whether that sun is in Gemini or Virgo or Aquarius, that sun always links back to the sign of Leo, because Leo is the sign of the sun and it is ruled by the sun. So that said, we are in a stage and setting where we are living life through the Leo archetype, and where we are also discovering passion and creativity, identity, self, individualization. But of course, this will be specific to your own life. That part is you. You may be thinking, I'm terrible. Well, maybe there's a better way to say it. Maybe my strength at the moment is not to be myself, but how do I use this energy, for example, to be myself? Okay, so that part is you. In the duration of the lunar month, we will have different aspects, and more importantly, we will have the full moon. The full moon is the complement to the new moon. It puts into full view, it generates sometimes events that are part of this stage that we are in. We will have a full moon on August 19th. It will be 27 degrees of Leo, and that full moon makes something called a square to Uranus. And you're like, oh, what's a square? It's what's called an aspect. It's a 90-degree angle. But it says in order for us to really discover these themes around identity and self, and we have to break free. And that's the energy of Uranus. It's an evolutionary planet. It does its work is to try to get us to grow and evolve by any means possible. So it's on one hand a lunar month, which takes us almost nearly into the end of August, for us to renew who we are. If we're burned out, we need to do more of the things that light us up, give us joy, give us passion, Leo. And joy and passion, even though it sounds a little bit like, well, like we need joy and passion. It's part of life. It's part of, especially with that fire energy as the first element in astrology. Without passion, without joy, we have no life. And so maybe this is a 4-week period, a lunar month, where we need to come back to life. So what's going to allow that to happen? Sorry, I feel like my that's a little bit better. What's going to allow that to happen? Well, sometimes we need to, I don't want to say take radical action, but sometimes we need to have a makeover. It sounds a little bit silly, but sometimes we need a makeover. Sometimes we need a deeper emotional and spiritual makeover. Maybe we need to stop doing something that is inherently against, fundamentally, who we are. It's just a way to look at the energies, not just the Leo new moon, but the lunar month that's ahead. So depending on, again, what our sun and rising sign is, that area of our life will then on a personal level be highlighted. So astrology is collective time, meaning you and I, we all just had a new moon in Leo, and that connects to a collective experience. Then we have personal time. We have both the relationship of the archetype of Leo, the archetype of the sun and the self, and then we have personal time in the sense it's very calibrated to our own astrology. And that is your birth date, your birth time, and your birthplace. That's the chart that's created. So when we go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, we will look, where is this Leo new moon bringing new life, but potentially also pushing you to make a change, to make a reformation or a transformation. Then we have Mercury retrograde this week. So as of, I think earlier today, Mercury is now retrograde. I think at this point, you all know that I'm not a Mercury retrograde or freaker outer. Maybe there's a more concise way of putting that. And I maybe I've said this a few times at this point before, but it's worth repeating. What is a retrograde? Well, a retrograde is a planet that appears to go backwards in the sky. It's not really going backwards. It is an illusion. It's an optical illusion based on different orbital speeds. Planet going retrograde symbolically means the planet is not in an active phase, yang. It is now in a yin phase, receptive. In our universe, there's duality. There is night and day. There is yin and yang. There's up and down. It's just two halves of a whole. It can't all be going forward as much as we would like that. A retrograde allows us to touch base with the yin energy, receptivity, intuition, rest, reflection. Then we take the time over the next 3-4 weeks to really integrate our experiences, our choices, our conversations, our ideas that we had all throughout July, because, and even probably into June, but Mercury will retrace its path all the way back to 21 degrees of Leo, which will bring us to about mid-July was when Mercury was last at 21 Leo. So we have this period that we need, and Mercury is a planet that turns retrograde the most frequently, every three or so months, for 3 to 4 times a year. But all planets go retrograde. Not the sun and the moon, but every other planet goes retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde the most frequent. By comparison, you have planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto that spend 5 months out of the year retrograde. Then we have Jupiter. I think that's about 4.5 months, or maybe that's Saturn, or Jupiter's 4 months, Saturn's about 4.5 months. Venus turns retrograde every 18 months, and every, I think, 2 years we have a Mars retrograde. So we will actually have a Mars retrograde later this year, but that's another conversation for another time. It is the natural ebb and flow of energy. Astrology is first astronomy, but it is the symbolic look at what these planets, these energies, and these archetypes mean and how it's weaving and creating our reality. So Mercury retrograde is your opportunity, not always the one that we want, to slow down, to gain a new perspective, to weigh your options, to listen to your intuition, because intuition is yin. And maybe you need to listen to your gut. Maybe you have been ignoring your intuition. It is not a time to be overly analytical. It is a time to feel, to sense, and to, again, to weigh your options so that when Mercury goes direct, we have a new perspective. So it's a little bit of a different way of looking at Mercury retrograde. That's not to say things don't get a little bit screwy. During what's called the station, Mercury, when it starts to slow down and it stations either retrograde or it stations direct, Mercury will station direct on August 28th. So we have about 3 weeks of the retrograde. And, for you, if you need to take a break and not sign something or not make a big decision, of course, it's your choice. I've made big decisions in my life while Mercury is retrograde. They did not magically become null and void or become undone. I have moved. I have done other things. I'll spare you the details. It's not to be cavalier, but it's not to be in this like, oh my God, Mercury is retrograde. So that is your periodic service announcement about Mercury retrograde. It started to gain a bit of a, let's say, cultural expectation, but things can get a little bit screwy, including electronics. I have traveled. I am traveling during Mercury retrograde. That's just how it goes. So anyway, so Mercury turning retrograde at 4 degrees of Virgo. It just, Mercury is in its own sign currently, so it has some strength in the sky, and Mercury in Virgo is the analytical side of the other side of the coin, which is Mercury in Gemini, which Mercury in Gemini is about taking in ideas and information, learning. And then Virgo, the other side of the coin, is the critical thinking side of thinking. So we need to look at our critical thinking skills. We also, because Virgo is systems, it is the systems, the day-to-day, daily rituals and systems that govern your life. You get up, you make coffee, you walk the dog, you do whatever the things that you do in order to make your life run. If you've ever moved, and probably you haven't moved in a long time, but I have moved twice in the last 3 years, you have to rebuild your day-to-day systems. It's from the silly things to like, where do I get my groceries, to how do I where do things get organized now? That's Virgo. That's the day-to-day stuff that keeps our life running. So Leo new moon, Mercury retrograde, really that's it for the week. We don't have a lot of big aspects, maybe because it's July, or not July, it's August, goodness. Maybe because it's just, not that week for big aspects. We will start to see some bigger aspects going into next week, which we'll talk about when I pre-record my video for next week, because we won't be live because I will be away. So that said, let's just use this opportunity to look at each of the 12 zodiac signs and see where this Leo new moon is really breathing in a new life and that spark of vitality for each of you, starting with Aries. Aries. So, we talked about this last week, how Mars is your planet and it's still in Gemini, and it's kind of, it's around Jupiter at the moment. And I'm kind of curious, Aries, what's going on? Do you see movement in your life? Do you see travel? Do you see exploration? Or is it not travel? You're seeing that this is a time of big ideas, a lot of conversations. Maybe you're coming to conclusions or opinions. Maybe you're teaching, maybe you're sharing. I don't know, maybe you're having the opposite right now, but it is a busy time, maybe even a little bit of a hectic time for you. I will say we are coming up to 2 weeks from now. We will have Mars square Saturn. So this is an August for you, Aries, to make some serious decisions, to honor your commitments, to build for the future, or to put things back into order, or even if something is not working, to say no. That said, this Leo new moon, it illuminates maybe illuminates not the right word because it's a new moon, but it opens up a new stage and setting in something called your fifth. Leo's fifth sign, Aries' fifth sign, if I start with Aries and I count out 5 signs, I reach Leo. So over the next 4 weeks, this is a time where one of the umbrella themes is identity. Who are you? And maybe that's a question that has a lot of different layers to it, all the way down to the existential side of things. Who you are is not just the name that's on your papers, your driver's license, your birth certificate. Who you are is shaped by memory and the past and time, but truly, really, and this is where Leo comes in, who you are is something that's within you. It's in your heart. It's like a DNA. It's like a light that identifies you as you in the universe. So how do you get back to that? And there's a lot of ways in which we can get away from that, or we portray that. We try to shape ourselves into somebody that we're not. Maybe I don't have to go that deep because maybe that's not quite relevant for your life, but maybe this is just a time for you to enjoy life, to rest, to relax, to get back that spark. But do keep in mind that Saturn's in the background, and Saturn is not a lay on the beach planet. Saturn is make sure you have your proverbial ducks in a row, that you have things in order, that you're really showing up, sometimes even showing up for yourselves. And don't forget that Saturn continues to be in something called your 12th. It will be there pretty much until the beginning of 2026. So this is on a larger macro level, a time where things are coming to an end, coming to the end of a great cycle, a great chapter, and there's a lot of focus on spirituality at the moment. Taurus, Venus is your planet, and as of, I think, Sunday, Venus is now in Virgo. So what Virgo shares with you, Taurus, is that you're both earth signs. This is a period that takes you into the end of the month where it's a little bit more practical, it's a little bit more tangible, but it's a time for you to really focus on the things that light you up and give you joy and give you pleasure. Typically, Taurus and Earth energy needs a lot of stability and security. So how do you use this time to really find your footing, to feel, and certainly there's been a lot of ups and downs, to really feel like you have something to anchor in and hold onto. Maybe you want to create projects, maybe that Earth energy wants something to become real, but whatever you are making in your life, it needs to be imbued with your spirit. That said, we do have a Leo new moon. Leo is a major player in your astrology, because if you could see your astrology the way that I see your astrology, Taurus is the beginning, and Leo, what's called your fourth sign, represents the base and foundation of your life, because it is the base and foundation of your zodiac wheel. So every time the sun is in Leo, it highlights roots, foundation, but also home, family, past, memories, mom, dad, also your living situation. This is a typical time for a move or a change in the household. Somebody moves in, somebody moves out, maybe a kid goes to college, maybe you're moving down the street, maybe you're looking to make a bigger move. This is whatever is happening. It's possible that it's playing off the bigger shifts and changes in your life at the moment. You did have that spicy Venus square Uranus last week. We do have the energies of Uranus very present in the astrology of this lunar month. So as you get into the Leo Aquarius full moon 2 weeks from now, something may be required of you to break free from, to move on, and to set off in a new direction. Gemini, Mercury is your planet, and it's number 1 in Virgo. Loves to be in Virgo, but Virgo is your sign of home and family and roots and foundations. So that's a major focus right now. And so maybe you're looking at your household, your living situation, thinking about a move. Maybe parents need attention. Maybe your own family needs attention. Mercury has turned retrograde, so it's not the end of the world. As you know at this point, Mercury does turn retrograde every 3 or so months. So this is your time, Gemini, where it's to review, it is to reflect, it's to consult your intuition. I know you've got that sort of fast Gemini mind, especially now with Mars and Jupiter in Gemini for the short term. Jupiter for the long term, Mars until the beginning of September. So you've got 2 planets that are really hitting the gas pedal hard in your life at the moment. And, that's the thing about like punching on the gas and going forward very quickly, is that sometimes it's just reactive and instinctive, or just acting without really, kind of thinking more deeply about what your direction is, where you're going. So maybe you need this Mercury retrograde to help balance out this energy. It helps you to reflect, look at things from a different perspective, and maybe even get closer to the choices that are actually going to support you. Mercury will be retrograde until August 28th. It will go back into Leo. I think that's in like around the 14th or 16th or so. I can't remember. And so that's going to be a little bit more of a busier time in the middle to late August, but it is still a time when you need to reflect on your choices and maybe even to look at things from a different perspective. Let's not forget we just had a Leo new moon, so this opens up a stage and setting that for you is about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn, but also travel, exploration, particularly travel trips within the neighborhood. It's not necessarily long distance travel, at least, if we're looking on paper, the astrology, but it's very likely a busy time for you, and maybe with that busyness there's a lot of back and forth, but in that back and forth it really helps you to gain a new perspective. Cancer. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon is traveling between Leo all the way to Scorpio this week. So, for example, we just had a Leo new moon. So that Leo new moon, August 4th, yesterday. And for you, Cancer, Leo is your second sign. So if Cancer is your first sign, because you're either a Cancer or Cancer rising, the sign that is after you is Leo. So I know you just had your birthday season. And Leo, the second sign for you, focuses this time on money, income, material stability, and security. So it'll be, of course, different for everybody, but at the end of the day, we are still human beings. We need food, shelter, we need resources, we need to feel safe, rooted, and grounded. That is sort of the macro umbrella theme for this new moon for you. So maybe you are looking at your spending, maybe you're making purchases to help create stability and security, furniture for the home. These are the things that really are talking about property and assets. You don't even have to spend any money. You can go get things for free, for example. Maybe you are getting things for free, you're fixing it up. Doesn't have to necessarily be spending money, but it does talk about money, assets, also value and worth, and even self-worth. So that's the major focus of this new moon. We do have the moon going from Leo. It will go into Virgo on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Virgo for you is something called your third sign. So it's a little bit more of a busier middle of the week. Maybe you got trips, maybe you got errands, maybe you got things to do. It's a little bit of a get things done Virgo moon. Even with Mercury retrograde, it just says that maybe it's time to go back to a past conversation or go back to a past project or revisit something that needs some attention. Then by the end of the work week, the moon is in Libra. We are 2 months out. I know I've been banging the eclipse gong a little bit, but I think it's important because these are major eclipses for you. The ones we will, at least the October 2nd Libra eclipse, this will be an eclipse that really focuses on your home environment, your living situation, but it does play off two previous Libra eclipses. This was the March 25th lunar eclipse of this year, and then also the October 14th, 2023 solar eclipse in Libra. So these eclipses plus the eclipses in Aries, your career, these have been a major dynamic period in your life. And I wanted to say that because the moon going into Libra later this week, I think it's Thursday, Friday, and parts of Saturday, do start to pick up on the fact that the solar eclipse is only 2 months away. I know that that's 2 months away, but I have seen it again and again and as an astrologer where when the moon hits the degree of the eclipse, which will be 5 degrees, maybe there's a little more technical aspect or technical point for people, that you start to see eclipse energy. So take note, Thursday, Friday, for most of Saturday, what's going on in the home environment. Are you planning a move? Is there changes in the household? Do you want to make things pretty? Do you want to clean things out? Is it more existential and emotional? You're really kind of thinking about like where's home and who is home, because these will be the seeds that bring you into October's solar eclipse. Leo, happy birthday, Leo, and you have a Leo new moon. So if your birthday is August 4th, plus or minus a couple of days, it is even more so a new moon for you. It doesn't mean if your birthday is not the 4th, you don't get to utilize this new moon, but for those that do have the new moon on their birthday, it just brings this energy into the new year, and it says that this is a big new year for you. That said, this is a new moon for all Leos or Leo rising to create this energy of new beginnings and renewal. I will say if you are a Leo rising, that this energy is a little bit different than the sun because it goes into what's called your first sign. So this is for Leo risings, you will have your birthday, and then you have when you have the new moon in your first sign, it brings that energy of like a birthday or new beginnings into your personal astrology. So that's a little bit of a technical point. That said, how do you utilize this new moon? It is to set the intentions, to set the I can't even think what I was trying to say, to plant the seeds of what you want this coming year to be like, as much as anybody can make those plans. But this is a time to get very clear about the year that you are creating. This new moon does play off of both Jupiter and Mars in your 11th, so this is a perfect year to make intentions, to build community, to make friends, to find your tribe, the people who are in alignment for you. This new moon will, especially with the Aquarius full moon on August 19th, play off on the energies of Uranus. This is a little bit of a conversation that we've been having periodically over the last 5-6 years. Uranus continues to be in something called your 10th. So this is not, at least the last few years, have not been a time for Leo to keep doing the same thing. It's a time for Leo to make changes, to break free, and to use this energy to get unstuck from the past. Virgo. So Mercury is your planet and it just turned retrograde. So no big deal. This happens every 3 months. But what's notable is that Mercury is retrograde in your sign. So it's when Mercury is in your sign, and especially for those who are Virgo rising, it creates this energy of new beginnings. And I think I said this last week and maybe even the week before that, is that with this Virgo in your sign, it's like you're starting to move forward into something new, but you need to go back and check something out, review something, gain a new perspective, or go and tie up loose ends with something from the past. Mercury will cross back into Leo, and that symbolically, I think that's like on the 14th of August, that symbolically represents the going back to the past. So on one hand, it's like you're moving forward, you're like noticing there's something about a new beginning, and if you're not noticing a new beginning, utilize this energy to start something new. But Mercury is also saying, but don't forget about the unfinished business, the loose ends that need to be tied up. You do have Venus and Virgo at the moment, and Venus is also kind of giving you this energy to, it's a very, Venus can be very creative, it can be very diplomatic, can be very social. And so, with the social quality of it, maybe you need to gain some perspective from other people. You need to get some feedback, for example. That said, Leo season, which we're not quite in your season, Virgo, but Leo season represents the end of your personal calendar. Leo is your 12th sign. So when you have a new moon in Leo, this happens every year, but it's going to change whether that's end of July or beginning of August. This new moon says that this is the time over the next 4 weeks to come to the end of something. So we have sort of these overlapping themes with Mercury going back into Leo in the middle of August. Virgo, it's a big time for you, and we've talked a little bit about, I'm trying to make this very concise. We talked a little bit about this. You do have Saturn in Pisces, which is a relationship sign for you. We have Jupiter in Gemini, which is the career sign. Mars is there. So it's like big things are happening, whether that maybe it's not big, like dramatic big, but like milestones, events, something about career, something about relationships. And all of this is preparing you for next year. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of things. When Uranus makes its first dip into Gemini, I think that's in July of 2025 to November 2025, and that's the start of a 7-year period where it might be for some people a career change or some sort of professional or public reinvention. That's another conversation for that time. So maybe, that said, even though we're not in 2025 yet, this is a time to really come to the end of something, to sunset a project, to sunset something in your life, to let go of something. And this is to prepare, even though you may not be really realizing this, for the bigger changes to come in 2025 and 6. Um, Libra. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and as of yesterday, Venus is in Virgo. So for you, Libra, Virgo represents something called your 12th sign. If Libra is the beginning and we count out, we come to the end of the zodiac to reach Virgo, the 12th. The 12th, symbolically speaking, represents the end. It's the end of a chapter, the end of a story, the end of a phase in your life. It's the space of rest. It's where we leave behind the material plane and we start to open up to something that's beyond the material plane, whether that's spiritual, whether that's emotional, whether that's energetic. And with all this focus on the 12th, it really depends on the type of person you are. Maybe you really welcome a time to prioritize your spirituality, or to have what I like to call sacred alone time, to meditate, to rest. Maybe for some of you, you just feel tired, you feel worn out, you need to rest, you need to recharge your batteries in order to prepare yourself for the new beginnings to come once Venus gets into Libra at the end of, I believe it's the end of this month, or beginning of next month. Venus goes into Libra on August 29th. And then we're going to go into September, and that's going to ramp things up because on October 2nd, we have that solar eclipse that I've been talking about in Libra. So use this time, Libra, because it is a dynamic time to be you. You do have, like I said, the eclipse that's coming up. You have the solar eclipse in Aries, your opposite sign, back on April 8th. These are eclipses that are in your sign or opposite your sign. They are beginning to come to the end of the cycle because, starting this year, September, we will have our first eclipse in Pisces. But by next year, we are out of these eclipses that have been back and forth between Libra and Aries. And the eclipse that is on October 2nd will be the last one in your sign. So that said, use this time. Rest, consult your intuition, listen to yourself. I mean, like that private inner part of you. Connect to your highest guides, connect to your higher self. Leave behind sometimes the over attachment or obsession with the material plane, because again, this is a very spiritual time that's trying to prepare you for the new beginnings to come with the solar eclipse. Oh, Leo new moon. Leo is something called your 11th sign. So Leo is friends, community, society, humanity for you. So this is a new moon to connect with friends, to build community, to maybe get involved in groups. But on a bigger level, it's also for you to look towards the future and start to vision and hope and dream and wish for the next phase of your life to come. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars is still in Gemini. So Mars will be in Gemini until September 4th. And so this is the time when it's a little bit more private, a little bit more inward, a little bit more emotional, because even though Gemini on paper is a very curious, restless, social and outgoing sign, it is Scorpio's 8th sign. It's a little bit of a technical point. I spoke a little bit more about it last week. But the 8th sign for anybody, you could be Leo, Aquarius, Gemini, but for Scorpio, it is the sign of Gemini. So we need to go into ourselves right now. We need to face something that we haven't been looking at. Maybe we've been projecting onto other people. It could be a fear and insecurity. It could be something about trust, power, control. It could be something deep into the psyche. You can utilize this time to transform, to regenerate, and that will bring you into Mars in Cancer on September 4th, all the way to the beginning of November, where it is about, like, well, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? Because this is the time, July into August, that's trying to test you. Test who you are, test your mettle. You're like, I don't want this, Katie. Like, send it back to the kitchen. But you know what? That's the thing about astrology. There's always a time, and it is Scorpio's time to test their mettle, to look within, to go into the uncomfortable corners, but also get into sometimes even our own fears and insecurities. For some Scorpios, it is about money, assets, finance, estate planning, benefits, insurance. And then for others, it's not. But it's a good time to focus on debts and spending and really trying to make some financial plans for the future. That said, we do have a Leo new moon, and this Leo new moon is in your 10th sign. So this is the most public and visible time for you each year. I know, Leo season, go figure. But the sun in Leo means that this is the time when it's to really get either attention, to get recognition for something, to start a professional endeavor. If it's not your career, then it's about your duties and responsibilities in the world. So this new moon gives you a reset. Maybe you're looking for a new job, and use this new moon to really take that initiative. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet, and it's presently in Gemini, your 7th sign of relationships, and it's joined by Mars. And I believe next week Mars and Jupiter will make their alignment. This is a time that's about other people. And other people means that it's like you have to learn to negotiate. You need to learn to listen. You need to learn to connect with other people. That's not to say that you don't know how to do that, but if Jupiter were in your sign, Sagittarius, it would be about you, your control, your power. But now the power is distributed elsewhere. So on one level, it is time to make relationship, to make connection, not to isolate. And for some people, this is a time, especially with Saturn in Pisces in your 4th, to get into serious relationships or to reevaluate existing relationships. For others, it is a busy time where you need to negotiate and navigate the needs and desires and wants of other people. And maybe Mars and Gemini right now is really putting the push on the needs and wants and desires of other people. That said, a Leo new moon is a fire sign, and you too are a fire sign. So this brings in the energy of new beginnings, renewal, creativity, self-expression. Leo for you is something called your 9th sign. So if I start with Sagittarius and I count out 9 signs, I reach Leo. The 9th for anybody, but in the case for you, talks about the world, your exploration of the world, your foreign travel or long distance journeys. Maybe you're planning a trip, maybe you're going someplace. There's also a time that focuses on faith, truth, belief, meaning. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? And what do you think is true? Sagittarius is the storyteller of the zodiac. It tells some tall tales. It's also the preacher of the zodiac. It's also the pilgrim, and it's also the explorer. So these are archetypes that are well activated with this new moon. Doesn't mean that you have to be all of these, but maybe you are seeking, searching, and exploring for something over the next 4 weeks. And maybe for some of you, the next 4 weeks are you sharing with other people what you have found, and you're seeking, and you're searching, and you're exploring. There is a time, or this period might focus on education, whether you are teaching or whether you are the student, but it is a busy time and one that connects on the social energies of both Mars and Jupiter in your 7th, and this is all preparing you for the September, because we're going to have the Virgo new moon, we'll have the lunar eclipse on September 17th, and that's where life will take a little bit of a different hue and tone, and maybe bring into the energies of Saturn and needing to get serious about something and make a commitment. Capricorn. So Leo is something called your 8th sign. Hopefully this makes sense, but you're a Capricorn, you're smarty pants, and the astrology has a structure. And astrology symbolically represents the structure of time and how time unfolds each year. Symbolically, each zodiac month takes us into a different part of an experience of life. So when we get to, for example, Cancer season, your 7th sign, this is the time in your personal calendar to symbolically connect with relationships. whether that means something is happening in relationships or it's just a busier time. Maybe new people are coming into your life. So when the sun goes into your 8th sign, in this case, Leo is your 8th sign, it brings you into a place in the zodiac for you that talks about needing to face yourself. I know that that's a bit of a strong thing to say, but we all have, regardless of what sign you are, we have an 8th sign, and that's the function of the 8th sign. To test us, to get us to face ourselves, to look at ourselves. It's the psyche, it's our emotional health, it's our, maybe we're sitting down with a trusted friend or even a therapist, and this is a time when we realize something. One of the ways that we can understand the 8th is this simple way of looking at it. Imagine a life that is never tested. Imagine a life where everything and every day is the same. Do you grow? Absolutely not. So for some Capricorns, the next 4 weeks is a period that's really centered on growth, emotional growth, spiritual growth, but growth where you can't skip over something anymore. That said, for some Capricorns, it's not the psyche that's the big focus of the next 4 weeks. It's money, it's finance, it's assets, it's spending, it's debt, but it's also estate planning, financial planning, benefits for the future, and even the money that comes from other sources like a spouse, for example. A Leo new moon can bring up a lot of deep emotions for you. It could talk about identity and self and the version of who you are for everybody else versus the version of who you are deep within. I will say that Saturn, we'll see this more when we get into September, Saturn will be active in the middle of this month, August. We will have the Mars-Saturn square. So really look to, I think it's like, I can't remember the date, I think it's next week we have the Mars-Saturn square, I think, or it's the week after. I have to look at the calendar. But my point is, and I'll have this in my video for next week, you may be feeling even this week that you're stepping into a time where you need to get serious about something. Because Mars plus Saturn, Mars is the energy of action. Mars is the energy of new beginnings and putting your hand on the steering wheel. But Saturn, even though Saturn governs you, is the planet of getting real and putting things into focus and into reality. So it's a little bit of a big time, Capricorn, and maybe that's what's shaking up a lot of the fears and insecurities that are bubbling inside. But just make sure you have a place to express them in a healthy way, to talk them out, to release them, so that you can make space for the things that you are building and the responsibilities and duties that are either being asked of you or you are naturally reaching towards. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn is still in your 2nd sign of money and income. So maybe this is like a little bit of a time to okay, well, how's it going for you, Aquarius? Do you see, at this point, what is it, 1.5 years of Saturn in your 2nd sign of money and income, what this time has built for you? For some people, it is a little bit of a hard look at money and spending and cash flow. For some people, it's really, getting a handle on spending and also even making major purchases. If it's not major purchases like as a home or property or assets, it's more philosophical. I really need to create stability and security for myself. For some people, it's not the physicality and tangibility of the 2nd sign, in this case, Pisces, Saturn for you. It's more in the emotionality and, again, the philosophical side of things. What's important? What's not important? So you'll have to let me know, Aquarius, how you're doing. Well, then there's the Leo new moon for you. The Leo new moon activates your 7th sign of relationships. So the stage and the setting over the next 4 weeks is other people. This is the time in your personal calendar where it is about building and forging relationships, dealing with an existing relationship, sometimes dealing with an issue in an existing relationship. But do not forget, Aquarius, that Pluto is right on the threshold of the front doorstep of your life. Even though it'll go back into Capricorn on September 1st, it will return to Aquarius for the next 20 years. I know, 20 years on November 19th. That is correct. So you may be sensing that even with this Leo full moon, that's sort of the tectonic plates of your life are beginning to shift and change. And maybe the life you had the last, goodness, even the life you had previous, the last 10, 15, 20, or 30 years is beginning to phase out. That said, on a surface level, use this new moon to focus on other people, to start a relationship, to revitalize an existing relationship, to navigate something that has been bubbling up in the past. We do have a spicy Aquarius full moon. Hey, you are Aquarius rising on August 19th, and this one is really putting you in the spotlight. But it is activating the energies of Uranus, and Uranus has been in your home sign of family roots and foundation over the last 6 years. But there's something that's changing in the home environment or inside yourself. Your relationship with the past memory, your relationship with family, and maybe it's a need to make a break from the past. Finally, Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet, and it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say heavy, but just let's say serious time to be a Pisces at the moment. Saturn continues to be in your sign, which it will for by and large until the beginning of 2026. This is a time that continues to ask a lot of you, to take on more responsibility, to honor your commitments, to be real, to put things in order, to not that you would, but you can't go like this anymore. You can't flip-flop anymore. Saturn's very black and white. And sometimes when Saturn is in our sign, it can coincide with life events that really mark the story of our life. We get married, we have a baby, we move, we buy a house, there's a career change, you start a career, there's different ways in which we could look at it. So Leo for you is something called your sixth sign. So we just had a Leo new moon, and it says that over the next 4 weeks, you need to focus on the details, the day-to-day details of life, getting organized, putting new systems in place, looking at existing systems, looking at the operations of your life, and really focusing on what's important to you, what actually nourishes and revitalizes your day-to-day life. And sometimes this means creating ritual, craft, and practice. All of this is in advance. So you will, as we go into September will focus on relationships, because we do have the Virgo new moon in the beginning of September. And September will bring us into the lunar eclipse, September 17th, that will be in Pisces. Hey, you are a Pisces. So you might need to start to clean air quotes, clean things up, get things organized, put your ducks in a row, metaphorically speaking, in advance of the bigger astrology that is waiting for us as you get into September. Get a little bit of that Saturn energy next week, because we do have the Mars and Saturn square. So there's a big push for Pisces to really sort of get in gear. Jupiter is going to be squaring Saturn next week. So it's kind of giving your August a little bit of a serious overlay. Serious is not bad, but serious is maybe not laying on the beach and pushing everything to September or hitting the snooze button. Serious means showing up on time, and really taking the responsibility that is being asked of you. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of August 5th through 11th, 2024. My name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm, we do this every week, and this has been Empowering Astrology. So you can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube. And just a reminder again, I will not be doing this live next week, the 12th of August. Nor will I be doing this on the 19th, because I will be away. I will do my best to pre-record. If I do not get a chance to do the week after, please forgive me, but just a lot of things to get done. I think I tried to do this last year, where I was trying to upload things from crappy Italian internets, but it just, too many things. So that said, I will see you all in a couple of weeks live, and in the meantime, enjoy the Leo new moon, and I appreciate you all. Take care. Bye-bye.